Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mortgage Broker Builder Show with your host, John Jerkovich.
Hello, all, and welcome to the Mortgage Broker Builder Show. We may actually be rebranding this as the CEO 1440 Show, but right now, as of today, it's still the Mortgage Broker Builder Show, where we help mortgage bankers, mortgage brokers, and anybody in the mortgage space go from mediocre to better than average and hopefully fantastic. And this week, we've got a super special guest, and she's right there. Her name is Leila. She actually has helped me sell my last house and does a bunch of stuff. So we're going behind the broker with a real estate broker and agent extraordinaire. And we're going to talk about all kinds of things that are mortgage, that are house shopping, house buying, personal brands. And we're just going to kind of get started here. This is somewhat impromptu. And so we'll take it from there and we'll see where it goes. Leila, how are you?
I am good. Thank you for that warm introduction and accolades. I appreciate that. I am good. I'm ready to kick this impromptu show off.
So I'm a Post-it note person.
Oh, nice.
Goes all the way back to right. I have Post-it notes. I've used correction tape on a typewriter. That's how old I am. So, well, do you ever use correction tape? I keep saying things to people now and they look at me like I'm like crazy. Like I was talking today to somebody about the movie New Jack City. Have you ever seen the movie New Jack City?
No.
With Pookie?
No. I mean, yeah, no, I haven't, but I'm not a movie buff either. So like maybe I've seen it, but I wouldn't recall.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, right. They've got crackheads and it's Chris Rock. He's like this crackhead and it's the movie where they like pour a 40 ouncer out to like the goodbye to their friends.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a cult classic in my world, but that's beside the point. So let's talk about real estate and some things that actually matter. So tell us a little bit, I know your story, but I don't want to tell it. So how'd you get into the real estate space? I know you didn't grow up wanting to become a real estate agent as a little girl. So how'd you get there?
Yeah. So background, I went to college in Florida and I got an accounting degree and I thought that's what I was going to do. And I did that for 10 years. And while sitting behind a desk and crunching numbers and doing tax returns is not fulfilling at all. And goodness gracious, my oldest is 13 and when she was 5, so what is that, 8 years ago? No, that's not right. But anyways, I had a summer in my life where everything kind of blew up and my house burnt down and then 2 weeks later my mom passed away. And so I had to look at myself in the mirror and be like, okay, what's important in life? Do you want to be doing bookkeeping and tax returns and all this? Or do you want to be doing something else? And so I went down that avenue of exploring things. And my background is very much entrepreneurial. I always studied different businesses to see what made sense. I wanted to open up an ice cream shop on Harson's Island. And then I was doing the math. How many ice cream scoops would you have to possibly do to make a living? And I was like, how does anyone own an ice cream shop? This is terrible. So one day I just light bulb went on and I was like, I think I want to become a realtor. And I said to my husband, I think I'm going to become a realtor. He's like, okay. And I signed up the next week and went to school in Flint for 40 hours, Monday through Friday. I studied that weekend. I went and took my Michigan real estate exam and got licensed and hit the ground running. And that was 6 years ago. So that's how I got my start.
Well, I think that you said something interesting there. And change often happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain associated with the change, right? So this just staying the same, right? And you see that in all kinds of entrepreneurs. There's usually a catalyst that pushes you over, right? You had, a house burning down, tragedy with your mother, that's just, you're like, oh, what the hell else? How much worse can it get? So just a kind of a question that I ask everybody that's kind of in the Behind the Broker series. What's one thing that you wish you had known 6 years ago that you know today about being a real estate agent, and would it have changed what you did?
Yeah. 40 hours is clearly not enough to educate someone. And I think they don't really push the fact that you're a solo agent building a business. I mean, that's what being is. If you don't want to be a business owner and build your own business and be responsible for revenue, you shouldn't get into the industry. But if I could go back 6 years, I wish I would have understood that is the basis, and how working for a brokerage, you've got commission splits and royalty fees and services provided, and do they really provide leads and all of that. So if I could go back in time, I would have educated myself more before jumping into becoming a realtor.
And do you think that that's a function of it here, like in Michigan, or that's just kind of a function of like, they're just trying to collect their money to get you to go through the course and then go get them Tiger. And that's why there's like 7 million agents out there?
Yeah, I think, becoming a realtor should be more than just that short. We have a very short window. I got licensed in Florida, and I want to say it was like 86 hours, but that's still what they didn't touch there on building a business or anything. And I think it's just, I don't know, the barrier of entry is super low, and maybe they don't, who wants to invest in educating them, realtors or whatnot, or who would be responsible for that? I'm not sure, but I think you would have that failure rate of realtors is at 87%. So I think if we were actually educated in the beginning of what we were getting into, less people would enter, and therefore we'd have a higher success rate.
I think it bodes well for the ones that do make it. Yeah. And we've talked about, we have this thing inside of our coaching and stuff where we call it our 3S speed square, right? There's kind of 3 triangles that you have. And since we're builders, we use a speed square, but it could be anything. But really, you've got like the learning phase or the training. You've got coaching where you actually become good at it. And then you have a leadership component. And I'll use guitar, right? If you're like a Johnny Cash fan, you're from Florida. So everybody in Florida loves Johnny Cash. You're all like, yeah, you have to. But I can show you right now in the next 10 minutes, every chord. I can show you everything that you need to know to play every Johnny Cash song. 10 minutes. That's all the longer it takes to show you, like, where do you put your fingers on the strings and how do you strum up and down? Now, so, right, that's the transfer of knowledge. That's training. And often it stops at training. You then have this coaching part where you've got, the thousands of hours and the reps, and that's what it sounds like. Yeah, that's the thousands of reps that you've done now. And then the leadership part is the third component. And that's, somebody's got to actually get you to practice every day. So if you want to play Johnny Cash songs and sing, Burning Ring of Fire, I need to train you where to put your fingers. I need to then coach you a lot. And I need to lead you to like, hey, Leila, get out of bed. It's time to practice Johnny Cash for the next 20 minutes today. Yeah. And in a couple of years, you'd be like jamming around the campfire. Yeah. So I think that all industries do that, but I do believe that the real estate industry probably is one of the worst. It's just the go get 'em Tiger. Here's where you put your fingers. Good luck.
For sure. Yeah. And I think you're lucky if you find someone that gives you where to put your fingers.
Really, even that much?
Yeah. That 40-hour course, it's just like anything in, you go to college to get a degree like accounting. And then I had no idea how to do a tax return. Like that wasn't actually a class that they taught in college. So yeah.
Well, I think that college teaches college. My son just graduated, right? Like if you're like public schools teach school, right? Like, how do you sit? How do you do it? Right? They teach you how to go to school. Like the learning is like an ancillary thing that happens secondary. College teaches you, complex formulas, but not actually how to go out and work. So I think it's definitely interesting. So where did you start out? Like, who was your first brokerage that you went and worked for? And I don't even know, I think I'm looking at your LinkedIn page and it says EXP, but like, I know you as Leila, the real estate agent, like the place you work matters a lot less to me than you, but tell me about like, where have you bounced around to? Where have you been?
Yeah. So I started my career at Century 21, Sackmar and Associates, and that was in downtown Rochester. And I actually only interviewed at 2 places because, again, that 40-hour class didn't teach me that I should have been interviewing and building out my Excel spreadsheet to compare all the different things. Like, are there desk fees? Do you get free printing? What is the commission split? Is there a royalty fee? Is there a cap on your commission? That's a huge one, right? But anyways, I got started there. And the reason I got started there was my family owns a funeral home in the same town in downtown Rochester. And Andy, the owner of Century 21, had been in business for 40 plus years. And so if you look at anyone that's been in business in a small town for 40 plus years, they've got to be a decent person, right? They've got to be doing things right, connected to the community, they care, or they wouldn't be in business that long. So I got started there, and it was a really good place to start because Andy would be in his office every single day. And what I did is I had one child at the time. I would drop her off at school at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I would go into the office every day, and I would be there from 8:30 till pickup time at 3 o'clock or whatever. And so I would just be there learning, watching YouTube videos, coaching myself. Top producers would be in the office. And you have to remember, there's probably 50 agents registered at this office, and I would see the same 5 top producers in the office. And Andy would be in his office. So I could just walk in there at any point in time and say, hey, Andy, I've got this scenario, I've got this question, and I could call him at any point in time. So that's where I got started, and I spent 3 years there. And then, I mean, it's kind of a funny story if we want to go down. I started exploring, and that accountant in me, I built out an Excel spreadsheet, and I went and I started interviewing at different brokerages. And now I knew the questions to ask that were important to me, and I knew what to put on here. And at the end of the day, you're the only person bringing in business in your real estate, as a realtor. So you control your income and you control your expenses. And that accountant and me were like, okay, if I were to do 5 million a year for the rest of my career, where does this make the most sense for my family? Where am I going to put the most money into my family's bank account to pay our bills? So I did this, but then we, as humans, are loyal and we like comfort. And so I was like, oh, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to stay where I am. I'm loyal to my broker. And then I had a dear friend, Nikki, went and talked to another top producer in the office. And he's like, you should go talk to Leila. So Nikki comes to my office. She said, hey, I'm looking at other brokerages. Can you help me? I know you have this Excel spreadsheet. So I was like, yeah, I sat down with her and I was like, basically like, Nikki, you're an idiot if you don't leave. Like, you're costing yourself a lot of money. You should go elsewhere. And then I kind of looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, wait a second, if I'm advising someone the same thing, how could I not take my own advice? So then Nikki and I jumped ship. We left Century 21 and we joined EXP 3 years ago. And I've been with them for 3 years. And I icon there. So it means like I'm among the top 2 to 3% of the 89,000 agents. And I do enough transactions to earn my cap back. So that is my history of brokerages. I haven't hopped around a lot.
I thought you were on at least your third, but you just keep rebranding, right? Like you're rebranding yourself, but staying at the same company.
Yes, I rebrand. And it's like, I mean, I don't know, maybe realtors get the brand right the very first time they try, but in the 6 years I've been a realtor, I've had another child. I've switched brokerages. I've moved a couple times. I've learned a lot in 6 years. And you're kind of just, for me, I'm just keep redefining until I get it where I just am in love with it. But we kind of change our vision and our love. So I continue updating my brand.
Well, you touched on a bunch of kind of little nuggets there. Thing number one, right? You're building a personal brand. And I think mortgage people can learn a ton from the real estate space in that this is a new concept to us, right? Like people worked at Loan Depot and then they were always secondary, or they worked at Rocket or wherever they worked and their brand was secondary in the lending space. Well, now with, the advent, it's so easy to get in front of thousands of eyeballs. I can post, myself, I make fun of you about, I can post something about gluten-free, in gluten-free to be in Oxford. And, but you can get in front of hundreds of eyeballs and that's you building your own personal brand. So, and agents have been doing that for years where it's a new thing in the mortgage space. So I think it's great that you keep redefining yourself. And, I don't know that Mr. Beast or, some of these people like online, like, I don't know that when he was 14 posting, I don't know that he was the same Mr. Beast that he is today.
Right.
So, right.
Yeah.
We all evolve and get better. And then you mentioned something else. I talk a lot about being the CEO of You Inc. And you, right. Like, but you, and you mentioned it there is something that you would like to learn is you wear a lot of hats as a real estate agent. You're the CEO of, you're the chief accounting officer. You're the chief marketing officer, chief sales officer, chief everything officer.
Yeah.
and you have to juggle amongst those hats. And you're also, right, you also play chief mom, chief wife, chief dog groomer. You've got all of these chiefs that you are, and you've got to figure out how to get them all in there.
For sure.
It's
a challenge. Speaking of dog groomer, I'll be right back. My dog is constantly scratching at the door, and I don't know if you're picking up on it, but I'm going to let my dog in so I don't have to hear this the whole time.
Well, we do not hear it. So I will just fill random time here. Well, we'll let Leila go back and pick up her dog.
There we go.
There she is. Now, dogs are one of those things that sound like a good idea when you're getting them, and they're filled with a lot of regret, I believe, after the fact.
They're a lot of responsibility. Whenever someone says, "Oh, I think my kids have been asking, they really want a dog," and I'm like, yeah, it's like a toy, you get the kid a toy and it's cool for the first couple of days and they're playing with it. And then they're like, oh, on to the next thing.
Yeah. We just got a kitten, it's pretty good until it's right. Like jumping on beds at midnight
and scratching and yeah.
And it will for sure poop in places and do things. So I have a question for you. This was something that you had asked me. I don't know, we were talking a couple of weeks back, but about sales, right? Like you said, with kind of the changing landscape out there, that you now are getting shopped for the first time ever, really getting shopped. And I thought it was interesting. I made a social media post on it, but tell me about that a little bit. Like the world's changing for you guys, and you're now being, asked to do different things. Like, how is that? And what's kind of really happening out there?
Yeah. So one, I think it speaks to where you're at in your business, that people that don't know, like, and trust you or refer to you are seeking you out, really. So that's kind of where I've, year 1 through 3, it was all sphere and referrals and, that type of thing. And then year 4, you kind of just, your past clients now start recirculating and things like that. And more people are recommending you. And when you get recommended by someone that already knows, likes, and trusts you, they just transfer that to the person. And so it's very often you're not really getting interviewed. You're there to serve the purpose. And now, people are finding me on Google. They're finding me on realtor.com, on Zillow, on wherever they're finding me. And we have no real connection, right? Or, oh, you sold a home in the neighborhood, so that gave you, a point, but we've got all these realtors mailing to us and online, and now you see all these discounts and different things. So I think people are getting more exposed. And then I'm also getting the opportunity to interview for jobs that I would have not interviewed for in my first couple of years in the career. And so now people are really shopping. And I think a lot of agents don't know the value that they serve, and business is down, and business has been hard for the last 2.5, 3 years since COVID hit. And I think realtors are desperate. They need a paycheck. They need to feed their family. And so now people are, giving discounts or doing different things. And so I'm just now in the position for the first time that I'm having to, mustered up more sales skills and more, I can't just walk in there and wing it, if you will, on a sales presentation. It's like, you got to get your stuff a little more dialed in, get your shit together, Leila, if you're going to be battling it out with realtors for listings.
Yeah. I think it's a unique problem to have. And you always in business, where you just swap out your problems. Your problem before, right, where you sit today, 3 or 4 years ago, like you're where you were hoping to be. Like, oh, if I could just have people just randomly call me out of the blue that don't know my mom, or weren't friends with my mom 20 years ago, or, like a connection. Like, oh, if I can just get my business to that point. Well, you get it there, and then it's like never as cool as you thought it was going to be. So I think that you're in a good spot, and right, new problems are good. It's better than just having the old problem over and over. And I think that for the first time as I see real estate agents a lot and talk to a lot of them, you always kind of had this thing where before you had one thing to sell, you sold like, a great listing presentation. You sold how you were going to sell the house, and you never really had to sell what your commission was going to be.
Yeah.
right? It was just assumed it was a flat fee. This is what it is. And this is what the whole world pays. And now with the whole NAR settlement, the consumer on the other end, and they've always been able to shop, and right, like regardless of what the lawsuit is, like people always had the ability to shop, just most people weren't smart enough to do it.
Yeah.
So now though, they're looking at it and it's almost like the in vogue thing. Like, oh, I got to beat up my real estate agent a little bit about commissions. And so you've got to just, have a better presentation. But I think that, in the grand scheme of things, if you do a really good job, like, and I know that you've said like, oh, I'm going to hold my ground on this.
Yeah.
And I think that you deliver the product that you can. And people that are cutting corners, right? If they're going to cut corners in their commission and what they take, where else are they going to cut corners?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We're running a business and we have expenses, right? So if you're like, hey, yeah, I'll do it for less money. I always say, okay, but are you hiring the professional photographer? Because realtors still use their iPhones to take shitty pictures. And it's like, you get what you pay for in life in general, right? You go buy a couch for $200 or you buy a couch for 2,000, which one's going to last the longest and withhold the kids jumping on it and the dogs and the cat and everything else. So yeah, the landscape has become interesting.
Yeah, it'll shake its way out. It always does, right? You have
yeah.
these ebb and flows of change. Yeah, we'll see. What are your thoughts on, I see mortgage brokers now going out and getting licensed, and I see real estate agents wanting to become mortgage brokers. Like, you have a ton of bandwidth to go out and learn something completely brand new, and you're like just trying to be a good agent. Do you have an extra 40 hours a week to set aside to like learning how to lend also?
No, I feel like I am constantly going to learn to be a better realtor, right? Like, do you want to go to the dentist who also decided to become a hairdresser or an ophthalmologist or whatever? Like, when I was getting married, I hired the lady that puts together the
Wedding planner.
The wedding planner. There we go. So my thing is always, you hire the person, the professional for the job. I want to hire the person. So for home inspections, here's the perfect one. I'm talking to a client and I'm like, hey, some home inspectors will inspect your septic field and your well. But I know this guy who all he does is septic and well, and he's been doing it for 20 years. So who do you want to hire to inspect something that's $20,000? The guy that's all he does, or the guy that's like, yeah, I can do it all? Like, no, hone in on that. So I think it's the scarcity. Like, why would a mortgage broker have to go out and become a realtor, a mortgage person? It's like, because they don't have enough income doing what they're doing. That's why they need to go pick up another profession. And maybe that's not true, but that's how I see it. And I think they should double down on what they're doing versus going and get licensed doing something else.
Yeah. I mean, we always are chasing shiny objects. It's what we like to do. Like if humans were bass, we would all be, like, right. You go fishing and you throw like this shiny lure in front of them and they just can't help it. We would all be extinct, right? We would be outfished. We would all get caught because you throw a shiny thing in front of us and we can't help but bite on it.
Yeah.
But I'm with you there too. It's so hard just to be really good at either of those things.
Yeah.
And you only have a certain number of hours in a day. Like, yeah, double down on what you already know. You've got 6 years, which would be like, it's a master's degree in realty. Like, why go and take a step back? But I do see it happening a lot, and people thinking that it's easy, right? Loan officers underestimate how easy it is to be a real estate agent. They're dumb. They're stupid. They have no idea. Stupid agents. And agents, right? They think the same, where at the end of the day, they're both really freaking hard.
Yeah.
And, 10, 20% does like 80% of the business. Like, get into that bracket and things will get way better for you. So anything that you're seeing out there, from like people, you talk to clients every single day, like, is there a common trend that you're seeing? And our market here in Michigan, I would say, is pretty consistent with the rest of the world in that we have, not a lot of inventory, probably more people shopping and looking than houses that we'll have for years. Like, are there any consistent things that you're seeing out there that's reoccurring over and over?
I will say the market this year is wonky. Like I was just at a Tom Ferry event yesterday, and I mean, that's just how we've described this year is wonky. I will say this, buyers, just like everything in life, have become lazy. Like when I bought my first house, I painted my first house. Did you paint your first house like inside?
Did I paint? Oh, I did all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I was the maintenance man, for all kinds of things. Oh, I painted, you
Yeah.
name it, I did it.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
seal coated my driveway, wrecked a pair of shoes.
Oh,
I spent
wow.
$100 on a pair of shoes to seal coat my driveway where it would have cost $150. Like, totally dumb things, but I did it.
Yeah. And it was like, hey, it's just part of it. Like I'm buying a house. I'm going to make it my own. It's going to probably require a little bit of work. And buyers today, and I think maybe it's a society thing, someone was, pointing out to me, want it done for them. Now, whether it's because of social media and HGTV and the glamour of these perfect homes, or they're lazy, or they don't have the time, they don't have the wherewithal, or they don't have the cash. I also think it might be that, like they're saving up enough money for the down payment and closing cost. They don't have the cash, but paint's not that much. And I say this because you'll see houses that are totally fixed up and move-in ready with like white pretty kitchens and ready to go. Buyers will come and pay over what that home is worth and willingly put down an appraisal guarantee of $22,000 or $50,000 or something insane. And it's like, okay, but that money you're coming out of your pocket, if you would have just bought the home under appraised value, you put the $20,000 into it, you put the sweat equity into it, and now you have this asset that's worth $400,000 and you got $50,000 of equity. Like, I don't know if we're just not educating enough for people to see that, or I don't know what it is, but I can just tell you that a move-in ready house sells pretty quickly. A house that needs work is going to sit on the market, and it's almost becoming where the only people that will do that is an investor will come in and flip it.
So I have a question for you that this brings up like lots of little threads I can pull on. Like, if you guys don't, like, we'll get all the like links someplace to like follow Leila and see her stuff, but you're always posting like, top this, top that. If you're selling your house, so you're saying like the prep on selling your house is going to get you way more return than what like the cost that would go into it, right? Like painting, staging, doing those kind of things.
Yeah.
How much faster? Let's say you've got a $400,000 house and
Yeah.
it needs $20,000 of work.
Mm-hmm.
How much quicker does that house sell? And for how much more if you put the 20 grand in? And keep in mind, right, it's painting, basic landscaping, like, what the 20 grand doesn't get you that much, but it gets you a lot.
Yeah.
What does that yield you on the backside?
That's a great question. I wish okay, let's kind of break this down. I wish I had a statistic, but it's so hard because, you'd have to like take two houses that are the same in the same neighborhood and do one, right? And do
Just give
one.
me your gut. I'm not asking, like nobody fact checked. We're online. You can say whatever you want. It becomes facts once you post it, whether it's right or wrong. That's how it works, right?
Yeah. Okay. So
85% of all facts are accurate 25% of the time.
Yeah. Okay. So one house in this neighborhood I just sold for like 442,000. And it was decent. It was move-in ready. I don't think it was nearly as updated. And then my clients took a house and, they were handy. So I think they were able to do a lot themselves, but it was painted. They had the LVT, flooring in there. They updated the bathrooms. The kitchen was nice, nice yard and everything. And I listed it at 450. So just over what the other house had sold for a couple months prior. And that house, I want to say I closed it at 487. So someone was willing to pay from 450 to, 487 on that. So you're definitely getting your money back, and you might even be, getting a $10,000, $20,000 more, maybe even more. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way that a house shows is, and I'm not, right? Like my wife is very big into house. Like she's always like, one of her pastimes is like surfing realtor.com. Like I look at some things like she's just, she knows every house that's listed, when it goes listed, who's listing it, what the bathroom looks like. We'll be driving places and she'll, oh, that house over there, they have a purple bathroom and they're downstairs. Like, oh, okay. But I think that it's interesting. There's some really cool programs out there. And I know you've asked me before about some bridge loan programs.
Yeah.
There is a program that is out there that we actually offer. It's where you can cross collateralize. So let's say you have somebody that owns a house that's worth, let's say 500,000 and they owe 200,000 on it.
Okay.
And they're trying to go and buy a new house for, let's say 500,000. So they've got, or 400,000. So they're looking at $900,000 of assets or of total real estate between them. They will take and actually add the value of both of the houses together. They will cross collateralize it and
Okay.
give them 80% of the new price.
So let's run that number real quick, because we've talked about this, and I've got, a handful of people right now that are at the stage of life of downsizing, and they're going to sell their house that they lived in for 20 years. It's, probably in good condition, maybe not perfect condition, but they want to downsize. And I've got two scenarios. Either they're still working, so they have that income coming in, or they're retired and they don't have the income coming in. And our market's so fast moving, contingency offers aren't really a thing. So, all right. So now we're going to downsize from their 500 and we're going to go buy the $400,000 ranch. And
yeah. So I'll do the math here.
Yeah.
And again, right, like but they've got their $500,000 house.
Yep.
And their new house is 400K.
Yep.
And they don't have 400K sitting around to buy it cash.
No.
If they had that, right, then like in a kind of a, so they've got 900,000 of real estate.
Yep.
You can get up to 80% of the total value. So that would be 720,000.
Okay.
So, and let's say you still have to pay off their existing 200,000, or they'll actually do some of these in a second lien position. So they could leave their 200,000, but that gives them 520. So the way that these programs work is you could go and buy the new house for 400,000 cash. And if you wanted to take 20 grand of that 520 and actually do some renovations on the old house to stage it,
yeah,
you can do that as well. So you could stage it, do your prep, move into your new house.
yeah,
Granted, these programs aren't super cheap. Like you're probably looking at an interest rate, it's high nines, could be 10%. It's going to fluctuate where the market is.
yeah.
You're going to pay a few points above where the prevailing rate is,
Okay.
but it gets you into the new house. They don't look at income today. They look at, would you be able to qualify after you sell your existing house?
Okay.
And it gives you money to stage the old one. So if you do need 20 grand to like stage it, do those kind of things,
Yeah.
and it's called a cross collateralization bridge loan.
Okay.
And it's ideal for, the right
Yeah.
person. And if you look at what's happened in Michigan over the last year, we've seen home appreciations. I think it was somewhere like 9% is where, so if you just move a year early and your interest rate's 10 and you see 9% rate of return on the new property, you're like breaking even. It doesn't cost you anything per se.
Right.
So there are really cool programs out there. And I just think that a lot of people just don't understand how it works, or they think that they have to do the bridge loan where, they're going to give you 75% of your trailing, property.
Yeah.
And you use that as a down payment for the new one. Then you've got to qualify for a whole loan. Like there are different ways to do it. You probably can't get it from your bank, right? I can't go to Chase Bank's not offering this, but brokers have some unique opportunities and some different programs that they can leverage. And cross collateralization is just a big one. And we are seeing a lot of people downsize today.
Yeah.
It's happening more and more because people think, well, if I can dump my house now, I'd maybe like to live in Florida in 2 years, but let me get rid of it now. Well, it's at the highest it's ever been.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on appreciation? Are we in a housing bubble?
Supply and demand. I mean, there's just not enough supply, and I don't foresee anything changing. Like, the interest rates being, I don't know what they are today, 7%, on a conventional, give or take. I think there are so many people that 4 years ago now with COVID that refinance when interest rates were like 2, 3, 4%, that there's so many people in that bubble that they're like, well, how could I give that up? Or my payment would be double. And because of the homes appreciating so much in that 3-year time frame, it's like, well, I'm leaving this house to go buy like the same house, so that's not happening. So I've been saying, like, for the last 1.5 to 2 years, people that are divorced, death, relocating for work, or maybe 2 people are getting married and they're selling their first time homes to buy their, next home. Those are really the only people that I've had coming to me to sell. It's not like, oh, hey, I just decided today I want to sell, or downsizing. That's the other thing. So you don't have, it's just a small percentage of the population. And unless interest rates are going down, and we thought they were, that was like in the beginning of the year, we were like, oh yes, it's gonna be mayhem this summer. These rates are coming down, and they haven't. And so I don't think until rates come down, we're going to have this influx of inventory. And if you don't have, it's just supply and demand. If we don't have the inventory, how are prices going to go down?
Yeah. I was looking at some statistics just recently, and there's this thing that they call household formations. So it's how many new households are formed. You can kind of think of it. I like to, make the story of, it's the boy leaving his mom to go off to start his own family, right? Like that's considered, was all under one house. Now it's 2 households. And there's a certain number of households that are formed every year. And then you have your scenario, right, where there's households that are formed via divorce and different things that one splits into 2. And then you look at, right, we've got a bunch of people, like immigration is a thing, right? There's more people coming into our country today than ever that need a place to live, whatever. And you also have population that's growing. So, right. So like you have this population that's going up, and there's, next year there'll be more 25-year-old kids than there are today, and so on and so forth. So you have this thing where it looks like there's about a demand for 3,000 units, right? Like we need 3 million units every year, just to keep up with those things.
Yeah.
And if you go in and look at like builder permits, builder settlement, like they're going to produce 1.5 million. So you've got a difference of, it's
half 1.5. Yeah.
And even if you go with the really like, aggressive numbers, maybe they build 2 million units.
Yeah.
And that's bringing in now multifamily apartments, those kind of things. We're creating 2 million doors, and we need 3 million. So there's 1 in 3 people don't have something. And what I like to do, and something that I think any agent should be talking about today is, there's that whole date to rate, marry the house thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which, right, like you're not doing that because you still need to afford it. But homes today, unless something, right, like unless we figure out a way to like turn, everybody goes into a mini house, or, they take strip malls across the country and convert them into, housing projects or whatever. They do tent encampments, right? Like they're big out on California. You have tent cities, but people don't actually want to live there. And you've got this problem where today, I like to say that homes are the cheapest they'll ever be right now today. And so if you are in that situation where, right, like you've got 4 kids living in a 2-bedroom house, and you're not moving because you don't want to, upset your 3% interest rate.
Yeah.
That house that today you'd be getting for 400,000, next year at this time is going to cost you 460. And even if rates come down, you're still paying 460.
Yeah.
And then the next year it's going to be 530. Your down payment went from, 80,000 to 106. Like it's just, you're trying to catch a falling knife. So, and that's on you guys as real estate agents to get out there and let people know, like, homes are the cheapest they'll ever be today. And if you're waiting for rates to come down, it's you and 4 million other people.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a shit show when rates do drop.
Oh, absolutely. I think yesterday they said like the stat was like 76% of buyers. It was astronomical. Didn't buy last year and are on the sidelines. So then like you have to like, okay, now 76% of buyers, when the market shifts a little bit, they're in it to win it, right? Now you're battling, and then the price of the house goes up even more because you're in a bidding war.
Yeah. And your mortgage payment, the difference on, 0.5% on an interest rate of 400,000, like people think that it's some wild number, but it's not. And there's a lot of tools out there. We had something on our website where I did a why wait calculation. Even if you look at like 7%, a 7% rate versus 5%. If you get 7% appreciation, like it literally saves you like $40 a month, and you lose like 30 grand or 40 grand in equity. So people need to be out there. If you are in the market to buy a house in the next 2 years, it will not get any cheaper than it is right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah. So we need to be screaming that from the rooftops. And maybe people will listen, or they just like the suspense of, having their wife get all excited about buying a house and then losing it to a bidding war and then crying and, all that stuff. Some people enjoy that drama. So what else do we got here? Loan programs, downsizing.
Yeah. So kind of touch on downsides. I want to touch on one thing that we were talking about like preparing your house. I am a firm believer on staging every listing. And sometimes people will say to me, why are you even staging this? Like I sell houses I don't discriminate like at all. My heart is, I want to help everyone that comes to me. Like I truly believe like God brings me people to help. And like part of the reward of helping everyone and giving all I have is that he'll give me clients that need a $150,000 house, and then clients that need a $1.4 million house. Right. So I like service everyone. And I think every home deserves to be staged and should be staged. And I'm not talking about virtual staging. Recently, I had somebody like, you're using AI staging. And a realtor chimed in. She's like, actually, no, she stages. So I rent a U-Haul. I have a staging assistant that I pay. We go into my basement that looks like a Home Goods. We load up the U-Haul. We go there. We unload everything. We set up the furniture, artwork, end tables, lamps, accessories. It's not like, it's not a professional staging, if you will, because that's not my profession, but for me, it's a service that I can provide and include it in part of my, listing fee. And the house shows so much better on photos. It shows so much better when they walk in, because they can envision, like sometimes people are like, I want to buy the couch, but it's not for sale, it's staging, right? But it's like, oh, you can fit a full-size couch there and a table for 4. And oh yeah, a king bed could go in this room, as opposed to walking in and be like, oh, this is kind of small. It's like, wait a minute. No, there's a king bed with 2 nightstands. So we talked about, getting it ready. And I think an important thing for people to do is, and the virtual staging, one, you can tell in photos, and like maybe it gets someone to go there and look at it. But then like, how disappointing is it to go to a house that's perfectly staged in these images, and then you get there and you're like, oh, but where's the furniture? Like, can I envision myself there? Can a full couch fit there? Can a king bed fit there? And so I think that is something more realtors should be doing for their clients, is staging, or bringing them affordable stagers. I remember when I first got started, I got this outrageous staging quote, and I thought, gosh, like, why on earth would someone pay? It didn't make sense. So then about 6 months ago, I started calling around and getting quotes, and I found a company that it's Fox Design. I'll shout them out. They will come in and stage the living room, dining room, kitchen, master bedroom, master bathroom, right? Fully staged with furniture, artwork, accessories. It's 2 months that you can have the staging stuff. They don't nickel and dime you. I hate people that nickel and dime. And it's like $1,900 or $1,950. It's the best $2,000 anyone could spend on their house, staging it. And I don't think enough realtors push that for their clients.
I was just thinking, right, you go to like Aaron's rental and you just rent a whole bunch of stuff and you stage it. Right. I was just like, there's a side hustle there, right? You can just do this rent, go to those places they'll give you like the first month for free, right? You just go in there and get a whole bunch of stuff and you bring it to your house. And then, I think that is super, it makes all the difference in the world. I know that, when you go to houses, if you see things that look dirty, you start making initial assumptions. Well, if this is dirty and they're trying to sell the house, like how much worse does it get after?
Yeah.
Like what's the real problems? Because we all know that people hide stuff. No, I think that is great. And I know that you do it right. Like you make people like clear out their house. You're like, little a bit militant. You're like, you got to get this junk out of here, rent a pod, get your crap out of here before we do anything. But like
Yeah.
they're paying you to sell the house for top dollar. So
Right. I mean, they hired me to be the professional. So that house that I gave the example of that went from 450 to 487. They were relocating for work, and the house looked great. They had totally updated and everything, but they were already moving and renting in a new location. And I said, we were just talking about, hey, timing about showings and having kids and trying to work and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, we just came to the agreement, well, it would make the most amount of sense and be less stressful if you guys went ahead a couple weeks early, moved into the rental, took all of your stuff, emptied it out, and then I can come in with all my staging stuff and stage it, right? And so I think that made a huge difference in that house. But yes, I go around and I say, you need to pack this up. You need to, I don't care where you're putting it, the basement, a little area, or the garage, or you probably wanted to throw it away for the last 10 years anyway. So go ahead and do it.
yeah, it's, you only get one chance to make a first impression. And when people show up, they show up. Let's talk a little bit about your brand, right? I see you out trying to build a personal brand. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
What's kind of your mentality there? What's your thoughts? How important is it? Like, what are you trying to do out there? I know you're all over online and
Yeah. Luckily when I first got started in real estate, I knew like I was running with like Modetz real estate. So like I knew to anchor my name because my family has funeral homes in the business. And so that name was recognizable already. And then just kind of evolved. So it was like Modetz real estate. And then I did a team for a short while, and I wanted to be Dream Home Collective. It wasn't someone's name. And then we dissolved that team. And then I was like, you know what, let me combine the two and do Modetz Dream Home Collective. And so I've just been building off of that. And I've always been black and white. It's very like, for me, just, I don't know, those two colors are very neutral. They can be luxury. They can be just standard. And then I always wear a red, I have like a photo, my headshot, which so many agents don't have professional headshots. So I don't know about mortgage. I don't look at, but everyone should have a professional headshot, and you can use it on everything. So it's like you spend $300 on your headshot, but yet I've used it, I don't know, 10,000 times or something. So, do that cost breakdown. Anyways, there are realtors who will disagree on this. So not only do I have a name, so it's Modetz Dream Home Collective, you'll see me in my red dress across social media platforms. I also put my picture on my business cards, on my for sale sign, on my open house sign, on my directional for sale signs. Because here's the thing, if you're driving down the road, how many times do you see real estate signs? All the time. Like, are you like, oh, that purple Berkshire Hathaway sign, whose name is on it? No, you're just like cruising. But if you see me in my red dress, I get so many times like, oh, picture, I see you outside of the Target. My friend was walking in her neighborhood and saw you. And so I'm a firm believer in having my picture on there. There are other people that are like, that's not very luxury. You shouldn't have your photo on there. I hear from women, but aren't you afraid like people are gonna, come and stalk you or whatever? And I'm like, no, I don't know. These ideas don't come into my head, but I am my brand, like I want people to recognize me.
I think that when you look at those kind of things, often people don't do that because they're afraid of what people will say, right? It's like they don't want their picture out there just because they're like, oh, what's somebody going to think about me? But, right, you want somebody to think about you when you are poor, or do you want somebody to give you crap, but like you have a lot of money because you sell a lot of houses? Like, put your picture all over the place. I think it's a great idea. You'll sell more homes if your goal is to sell more homes.
Right. Which, I mean,
and you also have, right, like you're just very consistent. And I know like you run a little bit of a different team. I know like you're not out there doing it, but you've got like a little, like your like mini team or your micro team.
Yeah.
Like, what's your structure look like?
Yeah. So I heard the term micro team and I liked it. So my structure is this. I think you get started and then you hit a breaking point and there's not enough hours in the day. And so I think everyone's first hire should be a transaction coordinator. So that was my first hire. And the way I explain a transaction coordinator is when you go to a doctor's office, the doctor sees you for your appointment only, right? They're there to assess you, help you, and that's it. They are not the person who checked you in to do the paperwork. They're not the person emailing and scanning the paperwork to the insurance company. They're not the one calling to schedule to call in your meds, right? Like the doctor serves a purpose. And so my first hire was a transaction coordinator, and they take that work off the realtor's plate. And the whole reason for that is so I can have more time with my clients. I can make more phone calls, more emails, do more, open houses. I can do more, I can show more houses, and I can be building that relationship one-on-one with my clients, because who cares who's doing the paperwork behind the scenes and sending it to the title company, the mortgage broker, the whatever, right? And then you hit this other point and it's like, okay, well now I'm utilizing my time differently. And now I have so much where I like to do a lot of things for marketing for my listings. And it was just to the point where, I don't know how many, I'm going to say I'm about to have 7 listings right now, something like that. And I have so much that I do on a daily, weekly basis for my listings that I couldn't get it all done. Or I felt like, I was having to spend too much time doing that. And so then I brought in a virtual assistant. So my virtual assistant is the one who is making sure, I like say, this is what I want done, and then he executes it. And that's the key about consistency. I think so many times people are like, I don't have enough time to be consistent. Well, then if you don't have enough time to be consistent, that means you're so busy working that you need to hire someone, right? And so I hired the person to be consistent with doing that for me. So that's my micro team. And then I have a staging assistant who luckily I can just kind of, hey, I need you for a day here and a day there. And so she's not on my books all the time too. So I think there's so many options out there for realtors to hire the right people. And I did try a team. It wasn't the right fit for me. I like interacting with my clients. I like having those calls. I like going on showings. I like open houses. So I try to give away all the stuff that is not client interacting. That's my strategy.
No, I think it's great, right? Like as you have either time or money, and hopefully as you make enough money, you can buy back your time. And it sounds like that's right where your business is at. And if you can't, and you're just busy all the time and you have no money and you're busy all the time, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. You're busy doing bullshit.
Yeah. And you and we're in the midst of, we're going to do a first-time homebuyer course. We're going to like bring it big time. We're going to do a virtual first-time homebuyer course. And I think that this will work in any market. And I see a lot of people out there that are just uneducated. What's kind of the biggest thing that you see as you're interacting with people day in, day out, just like a niche of the market that's just missed? People they just miss it. Is it first-time home buyers? Is it those people downsizing? Like, is there a market out there that people are missing?
Is there, I don't know if they're missing it, but I don't know if they're best serving those. For like, I love a first-time home buyer. I love everybody, but I love a first-time home buyer because I get to take my 6 years of experience walking in and out of homes and attending inspections, because I attend those, and I attend the appraisals, and I attend the closings. So many agents don't, but I like working with them. And I think what's missing is pairing first-time home buyers with agents who like working with first-time home buyers, because it's all about educating them. You're going to walk them into a house, and I'd rather show them 20 houses and educate them and get them into the right house than it be my goal to, on the first, outing, show them 3 houses and be like, you should write an offer on this one. No, like I'm going to walk them through it, and I'm going to point out like, oh, see the white stuff on the basement wall, that's from moisture crystallizing or whatever, or it looks like the staining over here looks like water, or, this could be blah, blah, blah. And you're just like educating them on what they should be looking for. And, they don't know, they're first time home buyers. They're either leaving their parents' house or they went and rented for a year or two, probably had a shitty landlord, didn't have to know anything about maintaining the property. So yeah, I think that I'm excited for a first time home buyer course. I wish more realtors would educate themselves in whatever that space is that they want to perform in and serve clients better.
Yeah, I'm excited to do it. I think it will be fun. And I think that we're really going to add a tremendous amount of value to the people that come through there. And our goal is not just to get somebody a pre-approval. It's to actually help them ultimately become successful homeowners that then in 3 years can refer somebody back to you because they have a friend and it was such a great experience. So definitely playing the long game there.
For sure.
And I think it will just be fun to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think too, like, the goal is like, if you're thinking about you're renting right now and 2 years from now, you want to be a homeowner, it's like, okay, well, let's have those conversations of what do you actually need to be, to buy your first home? How much money do you really need saved up? And then again, like educating people. And I don't do this a ton because it's kind of like the balance, but I would love, like, we don't teach our children anymore. Like, hey, this is how you should account for your money. And this is how you should budget for your money and things like that. So I think that's an underserved area in our world and our market,
Yeah. And a lot of it, right? Most people's home buyer education starts when they sign a purchase agreement. And then, right there, they have a 45-day, very stressful experience trying to, right? Like you're trying to get educated via a fire hose on all the stuff that you need to do. And in today's world, right, they've been chastised since the time they were little about asking stupid questions, or you ask a stupid question and you get bombarded on. So people now they've gotten to the point where they're afraid to ask questions. They're taking it all in through a fire hose and they're going to Reddit for their like knowledge. Right. It's just it's a bad combination. So I think that we can provide something that's definitely better for them there. What, just kind of in closing here, we're going on an hour. What would be like, if somebody was going to come to you, what's the 3 reasons that somebody like, why should I use you to sell my house versus, anybody else?
Yeah. I am so committed. Like your wife we were at a meeting the other day. She's like a dog with a bone. Like if you say, I'm hiring you to sell my house, it's not one of those, I stick a yard sign in and walk away. I'm like, no, I shook your hand. I told you I'm going to sell your home and I'm going to continue from point A to point B. And I'm going to try every marketing thing in my power to get as many eyeballs in, on your house and get it sold. But the big difference between me and all the other realtors is that staging element, right? Like I'm going to come through and I'm going to tell you what you should do to prepare your home to get on the market, right? I'm going to walk you room by room and I'm going to tell you what items to take away. I'm going to bring that U-Haul in, or I'm going to say, hey, let's get box design in here. You have the budget. Let's get box design in here to stage a home. And depending on like the value of the home or whatever, and I believe so much in staging, I will go half on getting that professional staging company to come in because I know it makes that much of a difference. So it's like, would you spend $1,000 to personally stage your house? Yes, you should, right? So you've got the dedication, the marketing, you've got the staging, and then the experience and the communication. I think is why someone would hire me over, Joe Schmo who, and I think a lot of times people don't ask the sales history, right? Because like if you said, oh, I have an agent I could refer you who's been in the business for 6 years, and I have an agent I could refer you that's been in the business for 20 years. It's like, okay, but of the last 6 years, how much business has that 20-year agent been doing? I closed, 36 homes last year. And the year before, I think it was close to 50. So I'm like doing that many more transactions to have experience in all different, price levels, different scenarios, working through inspections and appraisals and things like that. And I know the market and what the market, how the market performs, versus someone that's like, yeah, I've been doing it for 20 years and I'm to the point where, you know, like, I don't know, Aunt Susie wants me to sell her house and maybe Uncle Johnny's cousin wants to buy his first home, and they're doing like 2 to 3 transactions a year. It's like, who should you pick?
Yeah, I think that the analogy of a dog on a bone is a good one, because we used you to buy a vacant piece of land. And in order to get it done, it wasn't like you just like write an offer. We wanted to split it. We wanted to buy it with a neighbor. So you, like dog on a bone, you went and negotiated with both our neighbor and the seller. You went to the city, you figured out how to get the land split. You got surveyors, like you did a whole bunch of stuff. And I don't know if it was like $500,000 or something. Like the commission was real, but it wasn't like you were getting paid. Like, it wasn't like you were Ryan Serhant selling a $150 million thing in New York City, right? Like you did some work for your commission, but you did make it all happen. And there were a lot of moving parts. But me as the buyer, probably the one thing that I would criticize you on is you didn't tell me enough how much work you were doing for me, right? Like you were doing all this stuff and weren't tuning your own horn enough. Like, hey, I just want to let you know, I went to the city, I drove here, I did these 64 things for you today. Like I didn't know about it enough. Like that could be one just piece of feedback. Like if you do 10 steps, let people know, like, hey, here's the 10 things I did for you today. But you are a bulldog and you do a fantastic job. And that's why I think that this first time home buyer thing will be really fun. So this was great. Thank you for your time. We will get a bunch of stuff out there and social on the interwebs and do all that stuff, but it's always fun and you do a great job. And I know that you care about your clients. Like that's apparent every single day. So thanks for what you do. And anybody can learn from Leila.
Thank you so much for having me. This was definitely fun. It like gets me all energized to talk real estate and strategies and what people should and shouldn't be doing. So thank you for having me on, and I'll see you when we do the first time home buyer, and you'll provide all the links for all the socials and whatnot. You can even provide my phone number and my email address, anyone that wants to reach out.
You mean you're taking new clients if they want to like sell their house? Like you do that?
I do that.
Yeah.
It's so cool when the phone rings and someone says,
yeah, no, that's it's the dream world that we all live in. So
yes.
We want our phone to ring. Well, I appreciate your time. You have a good one. Anybody has questions about like starting a brokerage? How do you do more with real estate agents? What are some things that you can do day in, day out to connect with great agents like Leila? And every single agent that's out there is looking for lending partners that can help them accelerate their business. And they don't need anybody calling them to tell them that they can close loans in 10 days. Like don't even call and waste their time with that. Every lender can close loans fast today. So you better bring something else. You got questions, concerns about that, reach out. We'd love to help you over here. And Leila, you have a fantastic day.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks all.